They called her the cursed beauty of the village. The girl who had nothing, no fine clothes, no gold, no voice that anyone wanted to hear. But what the world didn't know was that inside her quiet heart lived the strength of a queen. Every sunrise, she walked barefoot to the farm with her parents, her laughter echoing softly through fields that knew more hunger than harvest. And while others mocked her torn dress and rough hands, fate was already watching. Because sometimes, the crown chooses the one who least expects it. This is the story of Jennifer, the poor village girl everyone looked down on. Until the day a stranger came. A stranger who was not what he seemed. And whose love would change her life forever. Jennifer was born in a small, forgotten village. Her family was poor, her clothes simple, and her meals often little more than what her parents could grow on their small farm. Every morning, she would rise before the sun, tie a faded scarf around her head, and walk beside her mother and father to the farm. Her hands were rough from working the soil, but her spirit was gentle and kind. Though life was hard, Jennifer carried something the others could not ignore, her beauty. Her skin glowed like the morning sun, her figure graceful like a carved sculpture, and her eyes held the quiet strength of someone who knew how to endure suffering with dignity. But instead of admiration, the villagers mocked her. "She thinks she's better than us," they whispered. Others, especially the young women, were jealous of her figure and beauty. They scorned her, laughed at her worn-out dresses, and looked down on her poor family. Jennifer never replied with anger. She simply bowed her head, worked harder on the farm, and helped her parents. One day, a stranger arrived in the village. He was dressed in plain clothes, his hands rough like a farmer's, his feet dusty from the road. No one knew his true identity. Prince Daniel, heir to a great kingdom, had disguised himself to search for a bride. He was not looking for wealth or status. He wanted sincerity, kindness, and love that could not be bought. He began to approach the young women of the village, asking for their hand in marriage. But one after another, they mocked him. "Look at you," they sneered. "A poor farmer with nothing. What could you possibly give us?" Some laughed in his face. Others turned their backs. Finally, they jeered, "If you are looking for a wife, go to Jennifer. She's poor like you. She's your level." Their words were meant to humiliate him. But instead, they led him straight to her. Prince Daniel watched Jennifer in the fields, working beside her parents. Sweat clung to her brow, yet she carried herself with quiet grace. She paused to wipe her mother's face and laughed softly with her father as they worked. In her, he saw what no one else could, a heart filled with love, humility, and strength. He approached her gently. "Jennifer," he said, "will you walk with me?" Unlike the others, Jennifer did not laugh at him. She looked into his eyes and saw not a poor farmer, but a man with sincerity and warmth. Though she had little, she offered him kindness, food from their farm, and respect. Days turned into weeks, and their bond grew strong. Until one day, the prince revealed his truth. The villagers were gathered in the square, when he stood tall, no longer in farmer's clothes, but in garments woven with gold. Guards surrounded him, and his parents, the king and queen, arrived with drums, dancers, and a grand procession. Gasps filled the air. The same villagers who mocked him now fell to their knees in shame and shock. The maidens who once insulted him hid their faces. But Prince Daniel looked only at Jennifer. In front of everyone, he took her hand and said, "This is the woman I choose. The woman who saw me not for what I had, but for who I was." A crown was placed upon Jennifer's head, and her poor parents wept tears of joy as the king and queen embraced them as family. The once scorned village girl was carried away in glory, her beauty shining brighter than ever. And as she rode beside her husband to the city, Jennifer, the girl once mocked for her poverty, became queen. They mocked her. They laughed at her torn dress and empty hands. But in the end, the same people who looked down on her, bowed before her. From the dust of the farm to the throne of a kingdom, Jennifer's story reminds us that grace needs no riches. And true beauty shines even in rags. Because when destiny calls your name, no amount of laughter, jealousy, or shame can silence it. She was once the village girl they scorned. But now, she is the queen they all honor.